Well, I mean, potentially. I think we need to see how it plays out in terms of the Durham police investigation, which they're obviously revisiting. I just think, Deanna, we're in a pretty mad situation as a country where, on the one hand, the Prime Minister is coming under enormous pressure from the opposition to resign as a result of a cake, and on the other hand, it's likely possibly that the leader of the opposition is going to come under enormous pressure from the government to resign because of a curry. And you kind of think, how did we find ourselves in such a bizarre situation?
It's like the thick of it, isn't it? But in real life.
Well, it almost is. I mean, it's almost beyond parody. And, you know, the truth is we find ourselves in the position because, in my view, Parliament pushed through legislation and restrictions which I think were fundamentally extreme in the first place. And I think now we're seeing some of that play out in terms of what it means when you shine a microscope on it or put the microscope to it. On one level, my view is, look, as politicians, you really deserve everything you get on this because you did enact those laws, which meant that people couldn't go to funerals of loved ones, couldn't be by their loved ones when they were dying, couldn't get married and all of that sort of thing. So the nature of those restrictions you pushed through were such that you can't complain if people are now scrutinising your own actions in terms of what you did. But I have to say a greater part of me thinks this topic is now so utterly tedious. It's become such a Westminster bubble story. I think calls on Johnson to resign were legitimate, but I think it's now become a total Westminster bubble story. And people out there, you know, the man on the Clapham omnibus, the woman on the Clapham omnibus is thinking, I've got a cost of living crisis. I'm struggling to heat my home potentially. I don't know if I'm going to be able to pay the mortgage at the end of the month. I don't give a fig about curries and cakes. Move on.
I think linked to that, you know, talking about kind of out there outside the Westminster bubble, the Times have reported today that the Beergate investigation will take up to 6 detectives for between 4 and 6 weeks, and they'll make use of a major incident room. When people can't get a visit from a police officer because their shed's been broken into or they've been burgled or whatever it might be, Arlene, I mean, this is a massive waste of police time in a way, isn't it?
It is, but you see, the problem is they have to investigate now because of what happened to the Prime Minister. And I always said that this was a complete non-story and we should move on and deal with the issues that Paul has just referred to. But once you start down the road, there has to be equity between both sides. If evidence is produced that there has been a breach by the Labour leader, then that has to be investigated. And you're right, a complete and utter waste of police time and resources when they could be dealing with things that really matter to the community. But I said last week, he who comes to equity must come with clean hands. It now appears that there's evidence there. It'll have to be investigated. But my goodness, what a waste of time. And if he does get a fixed penalty notice, what is he going to do? Because he called on the Prime Minister to resign. Is he going to resign? That then leads into a whole major crises within the Labour Party. Who's going to replace him? Because Angela Rayner may also get a fixed penalty notice. I mean, it's become a complete farce. And I was thinking about this the other day because one of my children's doing history GCSE at the moment. And I was thinking, how in the future will this be looked at by students of history? Will they understand it? It's going to be completely mad. But anyway, that's where we are. And I think it'll have to now be investigated and, as we say, waste a lot of police time.
Well, on Partygate, we talked about the Prime Minister's fate and who may sort of succeed him. But there's talk that Sir Keir Starmer may kind of be forced to resign. So, quick fire. Arlene, who do you think would be the next best leader for Labour after Keir?
Well, I'm not well positioned at all to speak about that because everybody thought Angela Rayner would be the successor. And of course, if she gets a fixed penalty notice as well, she'll not be able to take his place. I would say Paul's much better placed to decide on that one.
Go on then, Paul. Who would you like to see? I thought
you were going to say a much better place to be the leader, Arlene.
Well, according to some of our GBNews, I think people would like to be there.
I mean, I think the way that fixed penalty notices are being thrown around like confetti at the moment, there might not be anyone in Parliament left without one. I mean, I'd personally, I'm not particularly encouraged by any Labour figure in terms of leadership credentials at the moment. I would say possibly Andy Burnham, although the problem is he's not in Parliament at the moment. But I think he probably does get it in terms of what the Labour Party needs to do to reconnect with the working class. So the sooner Andy gets back into Parliament, the better, I think.